Hey folks, I don't know if you can hear it. If you listen real closely, you might be able to hear the waves as they hit the shore behind me. I hope you can hear it. I love that sound. I like to sleep to the sound of waves coming in like that. So I want to take a different track. Talked a lot about modern day philosophers. But I want you to understand that human beings, for the most part, haven't changed in the last 10,000 years. A friend of mine argues against that. Oh, yes, we're becoming better. We're becoming more enlightened. We're becoming this. We're becoming that. And I'm like, no. No, we're not. All the things that we think that we know that we are enlightened. Again, remember that video I did a while back about standing on the shoulders of giants? We only are where we are with the knowledge that we have because we've created methodologies now in order to store information so that we have access to it and that generation after generation can learn from it. But we're kind of stagnated at that point because we've reached that precipice where the amount of information that we have access to is more than we could possibly consume in a lifetime. And it just keeps expanding, right? So that being said, the philosopher that I wanted to talk about, if I could speak properly, is Confucius. And of course, he lived around 3,500 years ago, something like that. Is that right? 2,500? Anyway, somewhere in there. And so he has a number of sayings that some of them you might have heard before. First one, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. So very true. I've told you many times, I love to do simple things. I love to do projects. My garage is full of projects. You've seen it in other videos. The paddle skiff that I've been making in order to take out on the lake is one of them. Yeah. It's pretty much done. I'm going to recoat the bottom and then I'll be ready to go. It's a simple pleasure. I also like to garden. We've talked about that. I like to go for walks in the woods. Simple pleasures. I love being at the beach, walking with my toes in the sand, you know. Anyway, we make it complicated. It's not just our individual fault, right? I mean, we got to make our way in the world, and the world's a complicated place, so it takes complicated solutions. Sometimes, however, I'm afraid that we're pushing, see, blah, 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 can't even speak, towards greater and greater complexity that will eventually destroy us all. Whether it's AI, whether it's war, whether it's whatever. Complexity. Whew. I'll try to declutter my life. This weekend, this coming weekend, I'm gonna try to clean out my garage and get rid of some of those projects. Give them to somebody else who has the youth and energy to tackle them. Next one gets back to an idea that I've been talking about for quite some time. Confucius says, "Never give a sword to a man who can't dance." Yeah. And you know exactly why. Because if you don't have the physical agility and movements that are the foundations of dance, how could you properly manage a sword? You're going to cut yourself, or you're going to cut somebody else, or you're going to end up making a mess of things. Bull in a china shop kind of deal. Never give a sword to a man who can't dance. And I think of that with the first one, in that we make life so complicated. We're given swords to people who don't even know what dance is. Think about the technological power that people have access to, and they don't have the mental agility to manage it. Scary. Is it not? Next. He who learns but does not think is lost. He who thinks but does not learn is in great danger. Especially if he's got a sword, right? Especially if things are complicated. You've got to be able to learn. It's the whole point I'm doing these videos. You've got to be able to learn and then process that. And then utilize to create. That's what human beings are all about. And if you can't do that, well, then you got some issues. Either you're not thinking or you're not learning. Or at least you're not doing one or the other very much or enough. Because the last thing that Confucius says in this list of things that I pulled out, if you see what is right, but then not do it, that is cowardice. Remember we talked in a previous video about bearing the scars from all the battles that you did not engage in? Yes. might be afraid of getting hurt. But the scars from the battles that you do not engage in because you are afraid to, literally because you were a coward. I've been a coward. And that's not just talking about, doing some fisticuffs or, fighting with people. God knows I've done enough of that foolishness. I'm talking about cowardice based on not stepping up and doing what's right when you see that it's right, and you don't say anything, you don't do anything. But again, how do you know? How do you know what's right? I look at the conflicts going around the world and past conflicts, and even ones that they say they were a righteous thing to do. And I look at it and I say, was it? Or did we just get rope-a-doped in? And it's not about not wanting to fight, but fighting the right fight. How do you know? Unless you have learned as much as you can, and then processed that into a cognition based on critical thinking to come up with a result that has moved beyond your own internal biases in order to reach a truism. And once you reach that truism and you see that it's right, that's the battle that you must take on. Don't be afraid. Because in reality, the scars that you will bear from the battles that you did not fight are far greater than stepping up and doing the right thing in the now. I'm often disappointed in myself when I look back and see the battles that I didn't fight, and I carry angst because maybe somebody else got hurt because I didn't fight, because I was a coward in that moment. Or maybe I just didn't care. Maybe that's the worst. My friends, don't overcomplicate things, but learn and think. Don't be afraid. When you see what's right, act. And once you reach that point, then you have the ability to dance. And I'm not just talking about shuffling your feet. I'm talking about physically, maybe even mentally, maybe even physically. Take it on. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. Looks like the rain has stopped. That's kind of nice. And I've got a list of chores to do like you can't imagine. I'm working on another flower bed. I'm going to be transplanting my chives from one flower bed to another. I love chives. So now I'm giving them their own little personal flower bed. Trying to not have such a complicated life, right? Anyway, that's it, folks. I'll leave it at that. I'll chat with you later. Bye.